pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. Can I have an approval agenda to make an amendment that the Coggins-Sharp reporters aren't here, but I would like to show something that they did. So do that before public comment, because I think public comment would benefit from that as well. So we need to amend the agenda by just putting item 4 as item 3.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as amended with item 4 moving up ahead of item 3.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do a roll call vote?
Drew, you're on. Part of, at the Durham Fair, one of our reporters, Becca Tobin, and a lot of the jazz band were playing, and Tim was conducting, and one of the songs they sang I thought would be appropriate for us to sing.
That was the main stage at the Durham Fair, right? This year, it wasn't like
Yeah, that was the biggest thing.
bottom of Heart Attack Hill.
Yeah.
This is the entire jazz band, and
Yeah.
they were the accompaniment. So.
Hey, we don't mind taking that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. hoping that Becca would be here tonight so we can embarrass everybody.
Kind of mean to play that when we can't dance to it.
Yeah.
Bob, I wanna see that.
And there's a maybe surprise.
I probably would.
And all the other,
Walls
the other things that the students wrote or reported tonight is that the football team is 5-0. There was a night soccer game. The senior night for the girls soccer game is Thursday and tomorrow night, and there's volleyball going on right now. So I think those are the things they probably would have said. They took SATs and PSATs, but they probably wouldn't have talked about that. All right, back to public comment.
Why are you echoing?
Huh?
You got an echo back here, Bob. You gotta say something so I can hear.
Oh, all right, we got a person, we got Victor's on the phone here, so, can you hear me now?
No, it's an echo though, we hear you twice.
Oh,
Extra special.
well, it's gotta be special, you hear me twice. So, all right, the next, approval of minutes for the Board of Education regular meeting on September 22nd, 2021. Have a motion?
Move to accept the regular meeting of September 22nd, 2021 minutes.
Second.
Second, any comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are we supposed to do the roll call?
Is, what's his name?
A roll call on the votes.
Is an approval of vote?
I guess so. We have to, because of Victor's on the phone, we have to have a roll call under our policy for the different votes that we take. So instead of saying aye, we'll go around the room. More aye.
More, yep.
Missy?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
We're voting on the approval of the minutes.
Oh, aye.
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 Patrol.
Aye.
Bob and Bob Moore, aye.
And Victor?
And Victor
Victor
abstained.
abstains. Victor abstains and apologizes to everyone else for this inconvenience.
All right. The next board meeting is November 10th of 2021 at 7 p.m. We have time for committee reports, utilization.
Yeah,
Andrew?
sure. So we had utilization meeting on September 30th. We talked about several different things. So one, the situation for corn needs to go to a district-wide vote to do the formal transfer because it's a district-owned building. It can't be formally just decided by Durham. So that process, I'm not sure the dates we haven't set yet, but there's still some negotiation components that need to happen prior to the formalization of that date, but it's should happen soon. And then there was a fairly lengthy kind of discussion about the general building updates and current projects and capital needs. I won't go through all the details of that, but you should just read through the minutes that are available for those particular project and capital needs. And Kim, I didn't know if there's anything else you wanted to say for those things at this time. Then we had a brief discussion on security. There was a grant submitted in June. The previously funded projects have been implemented, such as like the film on the windows. So that's kind of the security update. And then from the last part of it was a discussion about the utilization in the RC committees and combining those hopefully after November with November's vote to try to kind of reduce down our number of committees and because at that time the utilization committee, which was formed primarily as a mechanism to deal with the declining enrollment and the excess number of schools at the time, they wouldn't really have a significant purpose moving forward after that. And that is all I have from utilization.
Thank you. Any questions?
No, I don't have any questions, but as I look through the minutes, I noticed there was some discussion on the field house, and I know that this has been brought up before. And I, for one, would like to see that move forward and perhaps have something in this year's budget for the field house, especially to cover the slab that's out there. Also, I was wondering if in the discussion of the field house, has there been any discussion about lighting for the for the fields.
No, I think the way we've left it is that we turned over the field house analysis to the building committee. There's several engineers on that, and then COVID stopped,
Right.
virtually all the discussion. We had left it that the final recommendation that I had made was that the board pursue the construction of the building based on this Amish proposal they had for kind of a Durham Fair kind of building. And that the booster clubs then, work to outfit it with plumbing and stores and whatever else. But that didn't go anywhere, and that was the end of it, so the utilization committee basically asked me to bring that back to the building committee and get some firm proposals. I started to do that. We'll have another building committee shortly, and we'll get into the details of that.
Yeah, and I for one would like to see that kind of move forward and have some type of have it addressed in some way in the upcoming budget, because it's been, that whole issue with that field house has been sitting out there for quite a while now. And if you can, to have maybe perhaps some discussion about the lighting as well, because I know we haven't heard about that, and I just didn't know where that stood or where it will stand.
Yeah, there's a whole legal issue that goes along with a lot of that, so we'd have to bring it all back together. I think most of us have not forgot about the detail of all that, so
Right,
bring it all back.
thank you.
The echo is on my phone.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Maybe you could put it on mute.
If Victor puts his on mute, and put yours on mute, it might clear up.
Victor, can you put your phone on mute? Because I'm getting a feedback here.
Yeah, 'cause if you
Well-being?
mute yours, then.
Oh, he
nobody
can't
will
hear, that's right.
And that'll defeat the whole
Yeah,
purpose.
maybe.
It's all
Well,
right.
Kevin's watching the live stream.
Laura?
Okay, we had our well-being meeting on October 5th. We started the meeting welcoming our new administrators from Coggins and Strong. Luckily, we had all three of them attend, so it was nice to get to know them and have them hear about our committee. We talked about our school reopening and COVID response. We had heard about how it went smoothly, and masks are going to continue until our next update. Everything is back in full swing, activities, programs, but of course with masks. Reimagining education. Doug has had several workshops, is that for lack of a better word. He's had a great response so far. And Doug, I know you'll probably speak more, or possibly speak more to this on his report. Let's see, we had a great deal of our discussion during that meeting was spent on the most recent issues of some bullying occurring within the district. I think it was Ms. Gonzalez's, I'm pretty sure it was her second day that when we were meeting, so we were able to have a full discussion with her about what was occurring. And she had already, that first day she was there, had pulled several kids and talked to them and was trying to get to the bottom of it. I haven't heard any further about it, but that was definitely, you could tell she was on top of it. We had also discussed using the SRO assemblies and making better use of the advisory time to also address these. And they're finding that probably due to COVID, but a lot of kids are coming back with just lacking that kindness and working together, the social skills. So hopefully we'll use better use of the advisory time for that. And Doug had also talked to us about the employee wellness program. It's a monetary incentive for employees to, Doug, you might want to be able, I think it was that they just log in and there are certain steps or health-related activities to do.
Yeah, the two major ones are completing a health screening, like a questionnaire, and also actually going and getting a physical. which we would like every employee to do, but
Yeah, and it's just
there's a little
good
bit of a
overall for their
monetary
health.
incentive to do that.
I think that was it.
Thanks, Maura. Any other comments? Thanks. The next item is communications. As most of you know, I did receive an email from Lu Ting, or otherwise known as Sunny. She's the teacher from China, from from Tongji School, interested in trying to get some kind of either virtual or other digital communication started among the students again, so that I know we talked to Doug and Matt, and we'll be working on that in the future. Also, at the I've had a lot of communication go into a night soccer game and a night football game. A lot of communication over what a great facility it is, what a great opportunity it was, how much the kids were enjoying it, how much the parents were enjoying it, how the lights stunk, and where were the bathrooms. So those are the kind of the broader communications we got from me walking back and forth at the football game. So, but it was clearly the last 2 nights were clearly a really spirit booster for most of the kids, I would say, and they seem to really enjoy being there. So, any other communications?
I had 2 opportunities to speak to the Middlefield Democratic Town Committee, and the basic issue was on Lyman School, and to answer questions as best as I could, and to try to address some of the misunderstandings that, you know, people had about some of the different facts and stuff that we had. So I did my best.
Thanks, Lucy.
Yeah.
Any other comments? If not, Doug?
Thank you. We did this at Wellbeing, and I know that most of you have maybe met our new principal at Strong, but I haven't had a chance to formally introduce her publicly, and she was gracious enough to show up tonight after a long day of work. So she's in a mask, obviously, like the rest of us, but Cheryl Gonzalez, if you'd wave in the back there, and yes. If I'm not mistaken, you've not even completed your 3rd week yet at Strong. And she still keeps coming back each day. So I think, but all kidding aside, we are very excited about the experience, the energy, the passion that Cheryl brought even prior to hiring her, and we've seen that play out daily, and we're just looking forward to what lies ahead. And so if you haven't had a chance to meet her, she wants to meet people. That's what she needs to do because she's new, and so thank you. And I also told her she doesn't have to stay for the rest of the meeting. She doesn't want to, but you're certainly welcome to. So again, thank you, Cheryl, for being here tonight and for being part of our team.
Thank you very much.
All right, next, Bob mentioned the football game. I wanted to mention that too, only because I was just so blown away and impressed by the size of the crowd. And I realized it wasn't all our folks. There were some HK people there too, which I think is also a good thing. I've also never been to a game where the home fans and the visiting fans kind of sit together. And I don't say that as a criticism, I say that as a compliment, because we have some fans and they have some fans that, let's just say they're very passionate about the outcome of the game and individual play calls and performances, maybe of their own children more than anybody. But in my experience, when those groups sit too close to each other, sometimes there's an unhealthy exchange. I didn't see any of that. I thought our learners were very well behaved, and for the first time I saw, because this was our first Friday Night Lights, what I'm used to seeing, and that is a group of very young people not really paying attention to the game, but just running around, throwing balls around and doing things like that, which maybe some people think that shouldn't happen, but to me that's kind of part of Friday Night Football. So again, I don't know where this is going, but I think it would be nice also if we could afford lights and a field house. Can't promise that to anybody. I know it's been an ask for a long time, but just having seen what happens when you can provide that environment, I think it's neat. And I just think it's neat when a community comes out and supports an event like that. And I hope, we can continue that tradition even if we don't have permanent lights. I think it's a great tradition. I couldn't go report without talking a little bit about COVID, but I do think this is a positive, and I think you all know this, it's just from the news, but our understanding is that possibly as early as the end of this month or a bit later, there will be a potential, I'd like to say likely, but I guess potential is the better word, approval of authorization for a 5 to 11-year-old Pfizer vaccine for COVID. And of course, families will have to make those decisions. We hope they will consult with their physicians or healthcare providers about that. But I do know we've heard from a lot of parents who have been waiting for this day, and I know a lot of our educators at the elementary level and at the lower end of the middle school are also hopeful that many families will take advantage of that opportunity. And so that's out there. And kind of a companion issue that we talked a little bit at well-being is also the availability of boosters. And we got clarification that all of our employees are in that frontline category. So even though there's only a strong recommendation for those that are over 65 or those with underlying health conditions, any of our employees are eligible to go and get the booster if they feel like that will make them, feel safer at work. And certainly we are supporting them if they want to do that. We're not requiring that, obviously. Don't want anyone to think that, but we are certainly supporting that. Let's see. We talked about the reimagining a little bit. I do think it's important because it's kind of exceeded what I thought would happen here. For those that aren't aware, up to speed, we've been doing these, you call it workshop, that's a good name for it. I've been calling them gatherings. But basically we had 33 participants go through Zoom over 6 sessions. A number of you were part of that in this room in the spring. Then we moved to an in-person format. We had 20 participants with us on August 16th, another 26 on September 27th, and I thought we had 33 signed up for November 2nd, but Meg told me today that more people are calling and asking to join, and so I think that number might be closer to 40. I don't know if this room's gonna work. It worked in September, but it's just neat that people are interested in learning more and being part of what may be happening. And again, none of this is any guarantee that this work is gonna take place in a particular way, but part of the start of this process is to try to explain to people why we might want to reimagine education and to try to get consensus around that and give us some anchor points for strategic planning moving forward, which I think is going to happen. The other thing that I thought was very encouraging is that we surveyed people at the end of these, and one of the questions we asked them is, okay, you spent a whole day with us, or you spent 6 Zoom sessions with us. Do you want to stay connected kind of to this group as the work moves forward? And we've had over 80% say that they want to, and I think it's fair to say that a number that said no were seniors that graduated last spring who were going off to college, and I don't think we should hold that against them, that they're not going to return for this work. I also think it's interesting, we have the opportunity, we asked people if they were interested in connecting with Education Reimagine's national training, which is something that I've been a part of. It's how I kind of got connected nationally in this work along with my last district. And we had 2 individuals go through that training in the summer. We have 7 more that are going through it in the fall. In fact, the reason why Corey and Jen and Matt Warner are not here tonight is the training is actually happening tonight. And so that's what they're doing at this time. And then we had even more folks that have expressed an interest in doing that in the next iteration, which I believe will be in the spring. And the reason I think this is important is that up till now, I believe that a lot of people are attributing this conversation to me. and that's flattering, but, you know, I'm not the one that really came up with this national vision or some of the work. I've just been a part of it, and so I think the more folks that we can have connected and networked out into this work, the less it's gonna be a Doug thing, and the more it's gonna be an RSD13 thing, and also, they can put in their 2 cents, and maybe they're learning more in the training now, because it was a couple years ago that I went through it. So, thank you for prompting me on that. I really wasn't gonna do that, but I still had my notes with me. So that was great. I also would be remiss if I didn't say, just how great it was to attend the Durham Fair. We got a little taste of that with the musical performance tonight. I got to see that Friday and Saturday, and the thing that I would say from both a professional and a personal lens that I wanted to share with you all is, having heard so much about the fair from so many people and then getting to experience it, it actually did live up to the hype, which isn't true about a lot of things in life. Because you just don't know. You hear people talk about it, and also being in school the day before the fair at some of our elementary schools, and feeling like the vibe there might be like more energy than even breaking for a major holiday. It's just such a part of the community. Again, the musical groups did great. I think they did us all proud in front of, you know, a lot of their own friends and families, but also in front of a wider community, and I think we should all be proud of that. I also think on both days, I was just amazed at how many of our families and how many of our staff really are a part of the fair, whether it's in a volunteer capacity or just kind of walking around. And a completely selfish personal note, I was talking to my wife and daughter right after the performance ended on Saturday, and it made us feel very welcome to be here and to be part of this community, and so just wanted you all to know that. It's nice. It's nice to live here, it's nice to work here, and it's nice to have kind of seen all that come together, and for it to have been outdoors, so we weren't all in masks, and the weather too had been nice. So, that's it.
All right, so,
Yeah?
what was your favorite food? Beverage? Booze?
Did
Come
you
on.
dip a banana?
Come on.
I had a bison burger at the bench warmers.
Thank you.
That was quite tasty. I got to volunteer with Corey and Kim, and who else was it just the 3 of us that morning? Others were probably there, but on our shift at the Apple Crisp booth, and got to partake in some of that. So I would put those 2 at the top.
Okay, awesome.
Very astute to pick out the local nonprofits, because it is the largest fundraiser for so many groups between Middlefield and Durham, certainly Durham Fair itself, but they go to support our mission here as well, and that is really important to understand that it's all mutual.
That's all.
Thank you. Any other comments? Kim?
Thank you. General fund, we're September, pleaded us with 21% expended and 26% of revenue received, so we're running for the 3 months at a quarter of our budget, so we are right on track. MTA is at 8% revenue expended and 5% revenue received. I have Meg distributed with the packet the budget calendar, the draft for 22-23. I don't know if you've had a chance to look it over. Really, it's just the dates that, you know, in the beginning, things that'll be happening internally, such as the electronic distribution of the budget materials to the schools. I calculate the share, the town allocations based on October 1st enrollment. And then the budgets are due to central office on the 3rd of December, which then we take off running and start reviewing any proposals and looking at the budgets from the building level. In January, we have historically had a Board of Education retreat. I didn't have a date for that, so I just put a TBD. You know, you can give me feedback on that, you know, whenever. And then the administrative team and the superintendent will finalize the budget at the end of January. We'll move in to present the budget on the 9th of February. And then that kicks off on the 23rd of our every 2-week budget meeting that we've had in the past. Talking with the superintendent, we're going to follow this format, you know, so he can get the entire picture coming in January last year, a lot of this work was already completed. So we're gonna follow this format and certainly open to comments and suggestions and sort of a, maybe a different way to do things. There is here a Board of Ed, Finance, and Board of Selectmen discussion, which could also be the Finance Committee. I didn't have a date for that. And then the rest is really statutory in terms of the public hearing when we notice it. And then we have the district meeting on May 2nd and the referendum on May 3rd. So if everyone's okay with these dates, and let me know about the to be determined dates and if they're gonna happen and when, then I can finalize the calendar.
I know Missy had an issue with the tentative date for the retreat on the 20th of January.
I don't have an issue with it, I just wanna know if it's happening, so I gotta pick
Yeah,
my
I mean, I
weekends.
can put it on
I
there.
can pick my weekends for work, like
Yeah.
tomorrow,
We
so.
were concerned that there was, Bob might be skiing that weekend. So
That's
anyway,
a better than likely chance.
We'll work out the dates on that, with everybody.
So do we think it's gonna be on a weekend, or do we think we're gonna do it during the week?
That's a weekday. My preference is during the week, only because we're limited to the number of weekends that we have snow. Look, if you're a golfer, you get to golf 9 or 10 months out of the 12. If you're a skier, you get to ski 2 or 3 months out of the 12. You take them when you get them.
Yeah, the 20th is a Thursday.
On my calendar, I have the 22nd.
I do too.
Okay, that's a Saturday.
That's what Meg put in there, so it probably came off whatever we
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
Well, I'll look
And
at the
it's
dates.
just, that's when we start, having regular board meetings twice a month.
Once a month, yeah.
Plus we have, on the off week, we have student achievement policy
Right.
and then utilization in the same week. So it's like, I like you guys, but
I'm all about streamlining if
I'm
we
not quite
can,
sure that
so-
we need to see each other every day. I mean, I've only been a part of, I think, 2 retreats, and one was on a Saturday and one
Right.
was on a on a weekday.
Yeah. Well, I'll look to schedule and see what we can do for a weekday, mid-January.
When is the budget finalized from you all's end, or when?
So we will finalize the budget on March 25th.
But
then we
previous to
can-
that, like when is the draft budget?
Really, right after we
The ninth.
present it the 9th of February, so right after that January retreat, any kind of input is taken in and then it's finalized, so yeah, can't really be much after the 22nd.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, I'd say move it up closer to the early part of January.
All right.
Could be a Zoom opportunity as well. I mean, it's not a regular board meeting, it's just a gathering to set goals, and Bob, you can Zoom from the chairlift, can't you?
Well, we can,
I've done that before. I've taken meetings sitting on.
we perhaps can
talking about our
alter a board meeting depending on the agenda, and turn that into a retreat, have a short board meeting and followed by a retreat to go over budget issues.
Yeah, it all depends on how you guys even view the budget. In my experience, you don't really discuss the budget with the board until you've presented it, so you have something to discuss. So, I know the practice had been to, I don't know, get like a preview of it or something ahead. I don't.
The main
Discuss
practice in the past
priorities.
was to at least articulate what potential goals and priorities we would have for the budget, which I think is I experienced 1 or 2 budgets that we went through where we had not clearly articulated those goals and objectives beforehand, and it made the budget season particularly just grueling, for lack of a better word, because we had to come to terms with what was in the budget and figure out how to kind of align that with what were the perceived goals and objectives. And so that's the reason why I would be in more support of having the meeting earlier, so that you all have a better understanding of what potentially would be our kind of goals and priorities as well from the budgetary
And
standpoint.
so I'm glad you brought that up, because the process that I eventually used in my previous district after a few not-so-great budget seasons, kind of addresses these issues. But to Kim's point, I don't feel like I can come in and suggest a different process when I haven't even seen it run its course. Having said all that, we are gonna be bringing a draft of a strategic plan, hopefully to you all at the December meeting. And see, in my mind, if you have a strategic plan, you don't have budget priorities that are different.
Right.
Like, those are the goals and objectives of the district. And so, we would be, what I would want is your all's kind of consensus / blessing, maybe even vote on the strategic plan, and then expect a budget that aligns with it. That's how I've operated in the past.
Could we make that meeting the retreat?
It could be. The only reason I'm hedging is I don't know how quickly the strategic plan is gonna come together, because we're gonna send drafts out to various groups of people to comment, and we want to continue to get input from others on this. But I that's what I'm aiming for right now. And so yes, to me, that would be the more appropriate purpose in a retreat, would be to go through that and not so much get into the weeds on the budget side of it.
That, and that is kind of, to Andrew's point,
Right,
what
yeah,
the focus of the retreat was, because there's been situations, where the superintendent would come back with a budget that reflected changes to programming that the board generally didn't agree with, and the public went nuts over. And it was like, we spent the next 2 months addressing the public on why this is or isn't gonna go forward before it was put back into the budget, when the earlier discussion would have gone like, hey, we really think we should do this, we don't agree with that, so please don't do that, and then it never would have, So that's why I think you're presenting a strategic plan is exactly what we're looking for that retreat, not the nits and gnats of the budget. Because to your point, that would come out of that.
Well, and I'll try to avoid the scenario that you described.
No,
I don't want to do the same thing.
No, but if you have
yeah.
if you have an objective, or you
Yep.
have a goal, or you have something you think goes, if we all agree with it, great, and if we don't, then we'll let you know, or we'll come to, at that time, which I think is a much healthier approach.
It is. The other nice thing about if we have a strategic plan that we can all support, is that the strategic plan, if it's done right, is kind of a far-looking document, and so it's not, this is this year's strategic plan for this year's budget, and then
Right.
we have a different one for next year. What it may actually come down to is we can't afford to do everything that's in it in year one, but here are the things we're gonna try to emphasize to maybe lay the groundwork. And a lot of what's in a strategic plan is not necessarily budget related, it's just stuff that we're gonna do differently. So, yeah, I would welcome that opportunity in January, and, it gives the staff and I even more motivation to try to pull that together in a format that makes sense to people.
Okay, then, is everyone in agreement with that before? Okay, then the next point I would have is, we have a meeting scheduled, BOE, BOF, and BOS. And that's like, on the schedule, at the point of fait accompli. And that means we're showing them the budget, we're talking to them about the budget, but you know what, we aren't really gonna do much about the budget, or they're not gonna have any lead-in inputs, which I would almost wanna see.
Well, this is Kim's, work. We had,
Following,
yeah, but we have, in the past, had the finance committee meet in December or November, prior to
Pushed up.
start of the budget process.
Which is great, so let's get that on there.
Yeah.
And make
Well,
sure
that-
people are aware.
That was having the finance committee wasn't part of Kim's budget process, so I can put it in there.
Yeah, I think it should be part of it.
Yeah, if we are, and again, I'm new here, we're not gonna be in a position to share anything with that group in November, obviously, based on this timeline, but we can certainly listen.
Well,
Well,
the
to
issues
them.
that have come up in the past are, what's the tax rate, what's the distribution between the towns, what's, the
Yeah.
impact gonna be on grants and other things like that.
Yeah. Final summary of where we are with balances in the
Right.
fund
Oh, sure, yeah,
balances
we
is
can
the
have
one.
those discussions.
So, yeah, and I think that's worthwhile. And then the other thing about that part of the discussion, I had sent an email to the board with a proposition that I work with Kim to try to put together from a 20-year capital plan perspective, how to dovetail that in with our planning and present to the towns and get the towns to agree to start funding the capital in the capital non-recurring funds of the towns. And by doing that, what we can do is, as you know, in the towns, we reserve the capital well in advance. So right now, we're coming up on replacing a fire truck in Middlefield. Well, we've been saving for that fire truck for the last 20 years, because it's got a 20-year life. And so now when it comes time to buy the fire truck, that money's in the bank, and we can buy the fire truck. The school district can't do that. We're restricted to 1.5% of our budget to put into capital, which is peanuts to support the school infrastructure that we have. By reserving the funds, so what that does is it puts us in the awkward position of having to wait till equipment is at end of life, and then going out and saying, we need a bond, so we need to pay bond counsel an outrageous amount of money to write a bond. Then we have to pay interest on the money to replace a piece of equipment that we know 20 years ago we're gonna have to replace, you know? And we never get to save for it because the state statutes don't allow it. By asking the towns to do this, the towns will start reserving the funds on our behalf, and then as we implement the parts of our plan, we can then bring that, we bring that to the towns, and then they just pay for it. There's advantages to that in many respects. If we have a piece of equipment that fails before the end of its life, we have money reserved to pay for it, and we can pay for it, and it's not an emergency situation. If we get to the 20-year life on that piece of equipment, and we do an assessment, and it looks like it's got another 4 or 5 years, we can say, you know what? We got the money in the bank. We're not going to replace it. We're going to wait 4 years. And oh, by the way, if it dies on year 4, we got the money to replace it then and do it. Or it's not going to go another. So it really gives us a lot of leeway in the planning, and I would like to bring that to the towns. But I would like permission from the board to work with Kim on that so that we can kind of lay that out. And then the last point I want to make about it, because I put it in my email, but I don't know if you all understood it, but I think, Doug, I think you're the one who said when you were here, one of the real estate agents talked about 20 and out or 18 and out. Basically, people will come to town and they'll live here for so long and then they'll move out. You know, they'll put their kids in the schools, get their kids educated, and then they move out of town. When we first proposed the 20-year plan or the 25-year plan in Middlefield, I had people come up to me and say, look, I don't want to pay for a fire truck that's going to be replaced in 15 years because I'm moving out of here in 5 years when I retire.
Okay.
And it's like, you're not paying to replace that fire truck. You're paying for the use of the fire truck that's in service today. Because every day it's in service, it's losing value. You're using it up and you're paying for it. By doing this and allocating the funds, everyone is paying for it at the time that it takes place. So at this point, I think I've said enough, but are you guys in agreement that I can do that in a joint meeting with the towns? And I'd like to do it earlier in the budget process so they can consider possibly putting it into this year's, starting it in their capital budget, or at least get the discussion in advance of their budget process.
We did talk about your email at the utilization committee meeting and indicated with both Christine and Andrew had some concerns with it. So we thought we would bring it back to an ERC meeting amongst us first before we would bring that issue out to the towns, so that we would have concurrence with the board before we pursued it with the towns. So they were just concerned about how it would work and whether or not there's.
I mean, I think we need a legal opinion too. Like it kind of breaks down the whole separate district structure by having funds that are then sitting in town funds as opposed to being controlled by the district, and I just don't know how, I mean, they're supposed to be separate entities, and I don't know how that would be accomplished from a legal standpoint. Like, so I just think it's a much more complicated issue that I think than just going to talking to the towns, and I think we need legal opinion just at the bare minimum, just to say, is it even possible from a legal aspect and a district standpoint? If it's possible, then I think we can then explore further from that standpoint, but it has to start with a legal. If it's not possible from a legal aspect, then there's no reason to even start to pursue it.
Yeah, well, from a town perspective, the town can reserve funds for anything it deems is necessary for the town.
Right, but I don't think it's worth discussing it, but the problem is that when the district had a request from the town, like, there's no necessary obligation for the town to relinquish that money if it is under their control. And so it's a control issue, and that's why I think it needs to have we need to have a strong legal recommendation on what that process would look like, how it would be configured. And I'm just not comfortable moving forward in any way until I get a good understanding of what the legal ramifications would be.
That's fine.
I'll set that up, Bob.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. All I know is if the town doesn't relinquish it, then we go to referendum and ask for a bond. Now they've reserved for it, and we're gonna bond for it and bill them for it. So one way or another, they gotta pay for it if it's approved by the voters. So yeah, it would be good as to how we would move forward with it, but I would like to try at least to start reserving, because
We also can try to get the General Assembly to up the 1.5% too. They were looking at 2, weren't they, this year?
It's 2.
it's 2, I'm sorry.
2%,
Yeah,
she just said
2%, but to meet what we really need, it probably needs to be close to 7 or 8%.
Right.
And that's a long haul.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question unrelated? Did the sinkhole get fixed on the track?
No,
Just random, but somebody asked me about it the other day.
We just got a quote on it, yeah, they're
Okay.
gonna be doing the work
So
soon. I'm not sure if they started yet, but yeah.
Okay.
it's like 15 feet deep, it's a pipe, they gotta line it, and.
No, I understand what it is, I just
Yeah.
wanted to know if it was done.
It's progressing.
Cool, okay.
Yeah, just to follow up with what Andrew was saying, that's the first thing I wrote down here, is it legal? I mean, it certainly sounds like a interesting idea, but, is it legal? Because then I was thinking of things like, well, how much does each town have to allocate? Because we have, different numbers of students, and the budget, they're allocated differently. And then again, if it is legal, will this be perceived by taxpayers? That the board now has, the school budget isn't just this, but it's also that, and they're paid,
it is
there's a
anyway.
lot of, I'm just saying, those are just some of the questions I have, but obviously the first thing that would have to be discussed is it something that can legally happen, and then we figure it from there.
Kim, you wanna finish? Oh,
Yep, the only other thing I had was, I'm gonna take it back to December 16th. We had a ERC meeting via Zoom. And at that meeting, we had Kevin Nickel, who is our Morgan Stanley, our financial advisor for our pension plan. And he was there discussing some stuff, and Bob had mentioned that he was interested in maybe looking at the makeup of the pension plan to be a little bit more aggressive, by moving some of our bond funds to a large cap stocks. So I'm just wondering if that's something that we want to bring back. We had asked Kevin to come back. He looked at our plan statements, and it supports that. Come back and talk about it, whether it be an ERC meeting or for the full board. I think that once this is done in ERC, then it moves on to the full board to vote. And if, some of the full board members that aren't on ERC have questions, then it's gonna stall. So I would almost prefer he comes and addresses the full board, but I don't want to make that time any longer. But he's happy to do that, but I'll take direction from you. Right now, our pension is great. It's at $11.5 million. We're funded at 90%, which is something to be very proud of. We have 130 members, and so it's very strong. Could we maybe be a little bit more aggressive? Certainly, but we also are protecting our funding ratio, and a lot of that funding ratio depends on return of investment, and so depending on the thoughts of the the board members, we can change that up, or we can leave it as is, so. Direction, you want an ERC, do you want a full board meeting, do you want them to go to both?
I thought in the last communication I saw from him, our allocation was already at, was it 70%?
We're 75-25,
Right, and so the most I think would go up to is like
80-20.
80-20, so it's not a huge move, and I don't know that it's a material move. I don't think it's gonna make a huge difference, so if you're more conservative, keep it at the 75-25. I'm just glad it's not down at the 50 that it was at one point way back, so.
But why don't we get a report from them of where we are?
Yeah, so he does do a
And with
yearly
and with the
summary
growth,
anyways.
yeah, and with the growth in the stock market, at this point, if they haven't been reallocating during the year, it's probably up closer to 80-20 now anyway.
Right.
Because the bond funds haven't been performing and the stock funds have been doing pretty well, except for the last month or so.
Well, I'll get a report from them, written report, and then we can submit it, and then if we wanna have a meeting, to adjust.
Is that something we can email out?
So typically he comes in those, if there's questions, it's tough for me to answer them.
Yep.
So, I can maybe distribute the report that he would bring, and then we can submit questions, to him, and then save the time, I can just respond in writing to your questions, if that's a better use of time.
Yeah, I think it's worth to get the pension report and the investment report, and then we can go through the.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And you can see the allocation of where we've been. I think it's important to watch where we've been as well on this. I know the pension committee looks mostly at the expenditure side, but not on the revenue, not on the income side.
We look at both, but it's really there if a member has a problem, and we have a pension meeting coming up, October, I wanna say later in the month, but, and we're gonna discuss new members, as we're hiring new staff members, we're not getting a lot of participation in the plan, which is completely voluntary, but we're also not getting people returning any paperwork, so we're just gonna talk about ways to try to troubleshoot that, because we need an accept or a decline paperwork, so that's just something the pension committee is working on.
Thanks, Kim. Now, the next item on the agenda is the vote to approve the Cockenshall Regional High School Model UN field trip request to Boston. Doug, you wanna go over that? Because it's on my phone and my phone's in use, so.
I can pull it up. I know Matt and I have discussed it. It's
in Boston.
It's 3 days, I believe, and it's,
Friday,
if you're
Saturday,
familiar
Sunday.
with Model UN, they try to simulate, oh, thank you. They try to simulate the actual UN, so they go and they participate as delegates, and every district I've been a part of has tried to send people if they can, and I think we're just thankful that this is something that we support, and hopefully you will support. Again, we haven't done much during COVID. I can tell you that, like with any out-of-district trip in somebody else's venue, we have to follow their guidelines, and at this time, BU does have on campus a vaccine requirement, so that's part of what our participants have to do if they want to go. So yeah. Anything else anyone wants to know?
The Model UN program has been pretty interesting, and we've had, involvement for a long time. One of the things that I found interesting is my granddaughter, who lived on Martha's Vineyard, she was in Model UN. She ended up teaching Model UN in Beijing in her college career, and was invited again to do it again in Dubai, and so that it's open doors internationally for lots of students when they get involved in this. So I think the program is well worthwhile, and I think it gives some students an opportunity to do things that are way out of their reach normally, both in their activity and in their experience in school.
I think it's open to all students in the high school, right?
Yeah,
I
it's
think they have to be in the Model UN club.
they're in
Yeah, the ones in the model, but it's all students in the Model UN club.
Yeah, there isn't a specific grade level, because I couldn't remember when
It
I
says
went
there'll be
through it.
10 students, 2 chaperones, yeah.
Is there, who has the blurb that normally usually reads?
Well,
It's already incorporated into the
It's in
policy.
there.
It's in our
Permit.
policy, so now when they send the permission slips home,
Okay.
that blurb is written in there.
Great.
So I'd make a motion to approve the Regional School District 13 field trip request form for the Model United Nations trip to Boston, Massachusetts on Friday 2/4 to Sunday 2/6.
Second.
Any other comments? By voice vote, Nora? You have to say aye or no.
Aye.
Missy?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
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 Aye. And
Victor hung up.
Victor just lost Victor. Victor,
There's
you're,
no service in here.
Yeah, I think you're actually supposed to have the names before the vote, but.
Victor,
Oh, we should
Here I
read
am. Aye.
aye, thank you. Thank you. Next item is public comment. Henry, no?
Hi, my cover's on this, sorry. I'm Sam, I live in Middlefield and I have 2 kids.
Can you say your whole name, please?
Oh, Samantha Bodwin, sorry, like I said, I have 2 kids in the district, one at Coggins and one at Strong. And I know it was touched on briefly, so I won't make a huge thing, but, I was the one who sent the TikTok videos to the school. And I posted it on the community forum, and it started a lot of talk about the bullying that's been going on in the district. And it's something that I've experienced in the last couple of years with my daughters, but this is on another level. I spent hours going through those videos, and it's really, really heartbreaking. And the amount of messages I received, I think it was over 50 personal messages and over 100 comments on Facebook about people who went on there and said, oh my God, my kid was on there. Or, I can't believe this, you know, and then I got an astounding amount of comments from people saying, I pulled my kid out of the district for this reason years ago. People who pulled their kids out 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago because of the bullying problem. And I agree that with COVID, it's probably worse because they lost that kind of social connection to each other and everything is just digitized. But I just felt like I had to say something, and I do. Last year I felt like when I brought the bullying situation up, it was in-person bullying. I talked to the school and I really didn't feel heard. But I will say this time I talked to Mr. Fitzgerald at the school. He did give me a call back after and said, here's what we're gonna do, which is what you mentioned. We're gonna have an assembly with the SRO officer and we're gonna talk to the students. And I think that's all great. I'm just waiting for the email that he said he was gonna send to all the parents. But I just wanted to address all of you. I don't know where your power lies or exactly what you can do about it, but I just felt like I had to say something about it, and I just hope that it's not something that we say we're gonna address and not address. Because this is the mental health of kids. You know, kids need to feel safe and comfortable in their school. Not like people are sneaking photos of them and posting it on the internet without their permission and making fun of them. Because that's what my kids go through. My kids are in therapy because of it. So I just wanted to take a minute to say that and hope that, you know, all the stories that you guys heard, I heard it was mentioned in some other meeting that I think I said I'm new to all this. But I just wanted to take a minute to say I hope it doesn't just get swept under the rug, and that I hope that it's addressed at a larger level more than just pulling a couple kids in the office. I hope they do those assemblies, and I hope that it's something that's discussed further for the whole district, and that, you know, they do something about just the bullying issues in general, because it's really sad to hear all the different stories from so many different people where their kids are going through the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sam, thank you for bringing that to our attention. I know when I read it, I was very shocked. I know we're not supposed to, but thank you.
Any other comment? If not, I'll be happy to talk to you afterwards. But if not, we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, state your name and say aye. Maura?
More criminal, aye.
Missy, I.
Andrew Taylor, aye.
Jamie Rohrbach, aye.
Lucy Petrella, aye.
Gil Martino, aye.
Bob Moore, aye. Victor, it's you.
Victor, aye.
Thank you for coming, Victor. I hope everything